Ivy Media Experience. And hello, everyone. And it looks like I just want to make sure we have Tiffany and Tasha. Is that all? Are there any on phone, Valerie? This is who we have so far? Just so I can
This is who we have so far. We have maybe 4 other people who may pop in, 3 or 4 other people who may pop in. So we'll just reintroduce you when they get here.
Okay, no, it's no problem. Just because I do want to hear from folks in a few minutes, so I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anyone. Okay, so when Val and I talked earlier, yes, I've known Val a very long time. You guys have a wonderful coach, teacher, mentor. She always says I'm a mentor of hers, but she's actually one of mine. I always have her speak to my classes every semester. And as you just heard, she helps critique and helps me keep these Cub journalists on point. So thank you, Valerie. A little bit about my background in the industry. So I started in television news right out of college. I'm back teaching at my alma mater of Howard University. I attended high school in Huntsville, Alabama, and when I graduated, 2 weeks later, I had my first job at the ABC station there, and I had an opportunity. I started training as an associate producer, and then I was promoted to producer, but I also like to report, able to do a little bit of reporting, and we had the first and only African-American reporter, Wendell Johnson, who was at the TV station, and when he left to take another job, I vied for his job with the news director because I used to produce and host community affairs kind of news talk show here at the university, and surprisingly I got it. So I also used to host and produce a talk show, so all of this at age 22, so I jumped right in. And then I went to my next station where Valerie came not too long after I was hired, so I wasn't there that much longer than Val, but that's where I got my grounding in broadcast journalism, and I went on to an ABC owned and operated station, and then I worked with NBC, and then I spent 9 years at CNN. And I started off as a producer. I started there in 1999. I worked for 9 years. When I left, I was an executive producer with Headline News, and I'm back, but I'm not, when I'm returning now, I'm a freelance producer. So I'm not assuming that executive producer role because I'm not really able to do that being here in DC. So I still freelance for the Atlanta shows, but here out of our Washington, DC bureau. And a little bit about my transition into this side. So when 9 years, I covered of all. The news business is exciting. It's always changing. It's cyclical. And I've had an opportunity to do a lot of fascinating and exciting things during my career. And one of the probably, I guess, two or three of the most notable things I've taken part in are, I was the 9 a.m. show producer during 9/11. September 11th, and if you remember, that happened just before 9. It was like around 8:46 a.m. or something, and I produced the 9 a.m. show. So for me, that meant I had to kind of take charge of the coverage from the control room, one of many, but it was my show, so I took ownership for those initial first few hours of September 11th. And as a producer, you're pretty much an organizer and a manager and make sure everything comes together. We received as you see, I have behind me, I don't know that you can see, the Peabody Award and DuPont Columbia Journalism Awards for our coverage, as well as for Hurricane Katrina and a lot of other stories. But that was probably one of my most notable experiences in the industry. And after 9 years of being at CNN, I had an opportunity to take a buyout. And I was really, really afraid. I felt inside my spirit that it was the right time to make a change and to do something different, but I really didn't know what else I could do. All I had done for then 20 years, literally at that time, was just television news. And but I took the leap of faith. I started a business called Media Ready Consulting, and with that, I was able, every single client I had came to me. I didn't have to go outside and find a client, but I did everything. My first job was a political campaign. So I've done political campaigns, event management, and one of the things that I enjoyed doing most was working with people like you. And that was preparing people who were interested in getting in front of the camera, sort of giving them the insider's advantage to know what it is they needed to know so that they could be on national news, also local news. And I'll share a story in a moment about how I helped make that happen. I thought it was going to be hard because all I did was work in a newsroom, various types of newsrooms across the country. However, what I learned when I left the newsroom is that the things that I had acquired really prepared me to do so many different things as a media professional, as a small business owner like you all are. So a lot of the things that I'm going to share with you today are from my perspective of someone who was on the inside helping make those decisions about how we decided to bring people on the air and what you could do to make yourself ready. So that's my experience from being a media professional and having a business in which that's exactly what I did for clients such as yourself. But in any case, I took another leap of faith after I took the buyout, started Media Ready Consulting, and an opportunity came. I remember seeing something pop up in an email about graduate school, and I always wanted to attend grad school, but you know, for those of us in news, we are well known because of our experience. So I dove into news as soon as I graduated. But anyway, I had an opportunity to attend Columbia University Graduate School of Journalism. I left everything behind. My mother thought I was crazy. My friends thought I was crazy. I thought I was crazy, okay? I still think I am paying those loans now. But I took the leap of faith. I went to New York City and obtained my graduate degree in journalism. And in journalism, Columbia is one of the best. They do the Pulitzer Prizes and a lot of the other top journalism awards in the industry for print, broadcast, and magazine. So anyway, I returned to Atlanta and completely changed careers and started teaching. So I was at Clark Atlanta part-time for a couple of years, and then I heard about an opportunity to return here at Howard, my alma mater. And I've been here now for 4 years. Well, this is my 4th school year. And so now I am a tenure-track professor teaching broadcast journalism back at my alma mater. So part of what I do are to prepare budding cub journalists for this crazy world of news. And so that's what I do now. I absolutely love what I do. It's the most gratifying thing I've ever done, giving back and being able to receive the fruits of your labor in our next generation and to see their eyes light up when they get that first job. Literally, a week hasn't gone by since I've been here that I don't hear from one of my former students. I got a text yesterday from a student saying, Professor Thomas, I just love you and I miss you. And from another who said through NABJ, she just got another job. So I constantly keep up with my students. So that's a little bit about me. But if I had to kind of say very quickly my story, it would be that I'm a journalist turned journalism professor. I'm originally from Omaha, Nebraska. I spent 14 years in Atlanta, and now I've returned to the nation's capital to help inspire future journalists to give them the tools they need to move from classroom to newsroom or boardroom. So the last part that I did is what I kind of talk to my clients about it, and that's probably the first thing that I would talk about, and that's how to prepare yourself to get coverage. And I know that's part of what today's theme is, right, Valerie? National publicity. You just can't call CNN and say, hey, I want to be on the air. I know you probably look at people on the news and say, how in the world did they get on the air? Who did they know? And a lot of times it is about who they knew, but it's also about their being prepared. So that's kind of what I want to talk to. But what I'd like to know very quickly, if I can, is a little bit about each of you, like what your business is and what you hope to do and how you're hoping to go to the next level.
Jennifer,
so I see y'all are on mute, but if Tiffany and Tasha, if you
for some reason, Jennifer,
audio
you keep going in and for some reason you keep going in and out. So we're gonna hang in there until I guess we get kicked out. I think did somebody just join us? Okay. Tiffany, why don't you go first, and then Tasha, you can go next, and just tell them
Can you
what you
hear
guys
me
do.
now?
'Cause, yeah, I can hear you, but you're freezing right now. So as long as you can hear us, I think we'll be okay. Because Tiffany has an event that is coming up in 2 days, right, Tiffany? Okay, tell us about that.
Okay. Hello, Jennifer. I'm so happy to meet you. Thank you so much for joining us here today. My name is
Hi.
Tiffany Washington, and I help career women to stop hating their jobs and start living a life of passion and purpose. And I do that through motivational speaking, writing, and workshops. And so, one of the things that's coming up this weekend inside of my camp is a workshop centered around goal setting. How can we ensure that everything that we desire in our lives for the year 2017 gets accomplished? Not only gets accomplished, but it gets accomplished in less time. So what my workshop focuses on is allowing other career-minded women to realize first their potential to achieve goals, secondly, how to achieve those goals, and walk into that purpose for 2017. So that's the focus of my workshop. So I will help women eradicate fear, establish a plan, and execute that plan in excellence over the course of 3 months, 3 different live workshops in November, December, and January. So this Saturday is the initial event, and it's actually my very first live event as an entrepreneur. So I'm very excited about it.
Okay, that's exciting. And where are you based? Where do you live?
Houston, Texas.
In Houston?
Yes.
Houston, okay. That's wonderful. Congratulations. I'm going to come back to that in a second. Okay. And then Miss Tasha?
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi.
Hi. So for me, I'm an entrepreneur turned speaker, coach, author. I'm branding myself as a success connector. I'm very passionate about helping women in the startup or rebuild phase of business to bridge the gap between their life success and their business success. Because I found as an entrepreneur myself that I was doing really good in the business world, but my personal life was suffering. So what I do is I'm a life coach and a business coach, but I'm marrying the two to really help women connect with God first, with themselves, and then with their vision so they can help others. I do local events like workshops. I also do online programs. Like I have a success club. It's called Women Connect Success Club. And my passion is just really helping that woman in the beginning stages to really be the whole woman and not just focus on one aspect of her life.
Okay, that's great too. So both of you guys, it sounds, have a real passion for helping women and for helping women to succeed in various ways, whether it's through a process of 3 months or just being more passionate about what you do. And I think that's a key to making sure you. So that's going to kind of lead me to what I wanted to talk about next. And that's, well, first, I know one thing Valerie wanted me to talk to you guys about are ways to kind of get yourself out there and to be seen in the media. And that's why I like to know what it is that you do. And just from hearing you, and it's good to hear you and not just see it in print, because you can kind of see the excitement come on your faces when you talk about what it is that you like to do. So when we get, in local news, but as well as in national news, there's a saying, and I don't know if Valerie's already said this in the past, but there's a saying that we use is that all news is local. All news is local, and that's something to keep in mind. And I didn't ask you, Tasha, where you're based out of. I forgot to
I'm
ask
in Montgomery, Alabama.
Okay.
In
All
Montgomery.
right, homie. All right. Huntsville in the house. I'm Huntsville. Okay, so when we say all news is local, a lot of the times when the network is looking for stories, this is, and I'm going to come back to kind of national stories in a minute, but even on the local level, it always helps that one of the first things that we ask when we go looking for guests, first of all, as we said, you just can't knock on the door, call up and CNN and say, hey, I think I would be good to be on the air. So some networks like I Know It's Seen, and we have booking producers where all they do is go around and find people that can talk to a certain topic. And it's for every network. The diversity may be good in some places, and in others it's not. Obviously, if there's good diversity, that's going to really help. Look for people of color who are experts in that field. But even before it gets to that point, you want to have to present your information and present yourself good, whether it's how you have it online, sort of digitally, where you kind of have your packet together telling who you are, what you do, how you do it, why you do it. But even before that, before you even get to that stage, you have to kind of know and to be able to share what that is. So when we say all news is local, that means if you're doing something in Montgomery, or if something is happening in Dallas, you need to know how your business can connect with what's happening locally in the news, so that you can get coverage locally in Montgomery and locally in Houston. Now with the internet, that can blogger, that could be the Black press is very, very powerful. So I would encourage you to find who the Black press is and where you live. That could be a community, public access show or community affairs show. You want to have something to get your name out there. Twitter is very, very, very powerful. Social media is powerful in terms of connecting with people who report and look for stories for a living. So when we first come in, the associate producers, and in some markets, the producers or reporters, we may spend up to 2 hours doing nothing but looking online, looking to see what stories are going on in Alabama, what stories are going on in Texas, what stories are going on in Illinois, and we just peruse, and we call that reading in. So you're spending an hour or so just kind of looking to see what the stories are. And then if a local station is doing a story about someone, we look and see what that story is and say, hey, there's this lady that's in Houston that has a business where she helps people set goals, you know. And then the producer, or if it's that same person even, they may say, well, let me see, let's see what she said. So if someone wrote something about her, then you would be quoted. Or if you were on the air locally, then we pull up that clip and we're like, oh, all right, she's good on camera. She seems real comfortable. She seems confident. She seems passionate. Well, do you think she'd be good enough for a national platform? And that's where someone like Valerie, or if you have someone that can help you do any type of media training, that's when that person comes in. And I wasn't really, focusing on that aspect of it, but you have to be, as my business called, media ready, so that when you have that shot, you don't blow the shot. And that starts locally too. And so the first thing I would do is to make sure that you have your packet together, your kind of like self-promotional packet to tell who you are and what you do, how you do it. And I think that's something, is that right, Valerie, that you're kind of helping make sure that you can identify yourself and present yourself good in
Yes.
front of and for the media?
My question is when they come in to you guys nationally, do they have a press release, or do they have a press kit? Which is more important, to have a press release or a press kit? I know on the local level, having a press release is fine because it's local. 9 times out of 10, we're familiar with you. We just want to know we don't have a lot of time to do a lot of research. So a press release is fine. But if once you get to the national level,
Right.
just probably prefer a press kit or a press release.
Well, no, not necessarily. On the national level, you still want to have that press release to tell what's going on. But there are 2 ways to look at it. So say, for example, now we have just finished this crazy election, right? And I'm going to give an example of how you can sort of pitch yourself. So we just finished this election. Hillary Clinton lost. Many of people were going around wearing pantsuits, the Pantsuit Nation, supporting her for women's rights. Many people were not supporting Donald Trump because of how he spoke to women and his stance on women's and abortion rights. So both of you are sort of activists for women, then the first thing I would be thinking of is, and I'll come back to directly what you said, Valerie, in a second, but what is a way to present your business to a local station that ties into what's happening in the news? So in a press release would kind of address that. So it's not just a standard one. It would be, so for example, Tiffany, we know that 2017 is just a couple of months away, right? So how could you promote what your business is in your goal setting and workshops to tie into what's happening in 2017? So, I would ask you, like, is there something that you can promote locally, even like I said, to the Black press, to, 2016 may have been a tough year or something for many women, but 2017 can still be the year of the woman. What you must do to be able to succeed or something like that. And then say and I don't know the name of your business, but with Tiffany Washington, with Tiffany's Women Enterprises, we have a way of helping women build success by such and such, start the new year off right. There's an event that's taking place, or she had an event, and then you can have photos attached, or if someone took Facebook Live or some kind of video to show what you're doing before the cameras even come, to show that you're already making yourself known in the community. So when and then you present it in a press release as to why something is timely, and these were some points I was going to talk about later in terms of how you present yourself, but something that's topical, something that's timely, something that's relevant, and something that you can offer that no one else can. Those are the things that we look for in the press release. Okay, so that's the first line of defense, is that initial email. Sometimes I would get, people would find out my name, and I was the only Black executive producer. So everybody who had some Black related story was sending me emails or calling if they were able to get my number, right? So the first thing I would do is read what the subject line was. Okay, so you have to be creating this. If you're doing it yourself, if you have someone who is an editor who's just good with words, even that stands out, because to Valerie's point, you don't have time to go through a whole bunch of stuff. And in a national newsroom, you have even a nanosecond, to just kind of, they're perusing. They're just looking for keywords, what's going to pop out. So to me, it's like the year, how can this still be the year of the woman in light of this kind of troubling campaign, or this, I can't think of proper adjectives at the moment, but something that's coming out of what we've just gone through. A lot of women are saying, what's next? And so if you can present your business, in a way that's topical and timely and relevant, I would start by doing that and trying to get some type of coverage for what you're doing, or present yourself a person who can speak to this topic. So for example, for Tasha, in Montgomery, even if it's whatever the name of the Black paper is in Montgomery, or if you know of a reporter that covers the government or covers certain issues, you can find their information on Twitter or on LinkedIn and reach out to them and have something that you've already prepared to talk about what you're doing and how you can speak on how women can get their confidence mojo back, or get their confidence back in 2017, or how can we recover now after a tumultuous election cycle, something, because you need it to tie into what's going on. And then there's like, oh, that might be a good story. That might be interesting. And then the person looks more to the second part, which is the press kit, if you have one. And then you could say, who is Tiffany? Who is Tasha? Boom, boom, boom. And then that's where you could say you've held a workshop for executives, on goal setting that accomplishes A, B, and C. And then you have photos from that. And then you can give a little bit of your background. Or if you've talked to people and they say, Tasha's wonderful, she changed my life, throw up your quotes of what people say. If someone has it on camera, have someone put together, 30 seconds about who's Tiffany, who's Tasha. Those are ways, and now with the internet, you can do it electronically. You don't have to do it like when we started and literally have everything on paper where you're just looking through, PDFs and Word documents. Does that make sense?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. And you know, as we go, just please stop me if you have any questions, because there's so many things that, you know, come to mind. I just don't want to miss anything. But so, you know, the biggest thing is, let's see. Okay. So again, and in your press kit, those are the things we look for. And I can be honest, like CNN, they're not even really looking so much now at the press kits initially. It's how is that person relevant to what's going on now? Because we're always trying to, as producers and behind the scenes and anyone in the news, we're trying to move the story forward. So now the election is over, and that's why I'm like, this is the time we're looking forward. I don't know about y'all, but 2016 was a rough year for me. So I'm looking forward to a new year. So it can be, as you set your New Year's resolutions, what are your goals for women, you know? Or is it time to get information? You know, use something that's kind of catchy, even if it's for Black radio or local radio or PBS, NPR. Look for ways that you can tie in with that audience. Those talk shows, I don't know if there are any local ones, but a lot of the national talk shows, that's how they would get people to come on as well. And I remember when I was trying to help clients get on, like Steve Harvey and Tom Joyner, it's the same kind of thing. I want to give another, an example about when I say all news is local. So I left CNN in 2008 full-time, and I started my media ready consulting. And for us, we as journalists and as a producer, I'm always listening and observing as to what might make a good story. Okay, so as you talk to people, a lot of times it's how you should always be kind of self-promoting what you do in a genuine way, of course. But anyway, there was a friend of mine, their family were members of my church in Atlanta, and he called me out of the blue one day. His name is Albert, and he said, JT, which is my nickname, I just have to tell you something had happened. And I was like, what? And he was like, you know, my family home is out in rural just somewhere. And this is a house that my father built with his own hands in 1950 for the family. And I went over to go check on things because my mother's deceased, but I still check on the property. And I went to the house, and the house is gone. And I'm like, what you talking about? The house is gone. And he's like, the house is gone. It's like gone. It's no longer there. Well, long story short, it turns out that a demolition company got the address to tear down a house, and guess what? They tore down the wrong house. It happened to be his family's home with everything, all these old artifacts, all this memorabilia, all the memories that he had from his family from whenever it was built. It may have been before 1950, I can't remember, but even if it was from 1950. So he was just kind of telling me, like, what do I do? You know, I can't believe this happened. That is crazy. And I knew immediately that was a news story. So what did I do? I said, I will help get your story on, because I knew immediately it was a news story. So I wrote a press release that was almost like a short news story, and I called it Oops, something like Oops, construction company tears down the wrong house, something like that. I typed up the press release, put it in a PDF, hit send, and within 15 minutes, I got my first phone call from the ABC station in Atlanta. And my friend there happened to be the lead anchor, Javita, and asked if I'd talked to anyone else yet, and could she get the story, because they were interested immediately. The story went from then, it ended up on ABC Network. It was on, I can't even remember, I think CNN did a tell. I don't know if they sent a reporter. I even got calls from the National Enquirer, Inside Edition. The next thing you know, his story was all over the world talking about what happened to his house. And it was just because he needed someone to be able to present it and know what to say. And I knew that if I were in the newsroom and if I read that headline, I'd be like, what the heck? And that's exactly what happened. And so as a result, he was able to settle out of court. He got, well, he was a businessman anyway, so, but he had a very good lawyer, and because of all the coverage, his story was handled, and his case was handled immediately. But that's a way of having someone properly be able to present what your story or your topic is, if that makes sense. Okay, so some tips for I'm looking at my notes for things I wanted to make sure that I said. Okay, so what do we do behind the scenes when we look at booking a guest? So the first thing that happens is, as I mentioned, they look to see what you've sent over. And that's 9 times out of 10 electronically. Please don't even waste your time of putting anything together by paper. Just don't do it. Now, a lot of people now even have websites that they have that kind of present who they are, you know, in a couple of pages. I don't think you have to do all that. It doesn't hurt, but you know, you don't have to. But say if you did have a website, there are a lot that you can get on free, like Weebly and Wix, even WordPress. My students have to create websites every semester for class, and they use them and get hired from them. They have everything you can imagine, from social media to links to video. So you can do something simple to like present yourself more. So you could say your stuff and then say, for more information, visit TiffanyWashington.com. And then on the website, you can have media. You can like have who is Tiffany, community service, and you can kind of separate it that way. Same thing you could put in an electronic press kit though. But that's just another tip. So the things that we look for, the first thing that happens is we may get something that comes across our email and we say, oh, that looks interesting. Well, then you have to do what we say is vet the person, V-E-T. Not take them to the vet, but we just say you vet them. And that means that we check out who they are, make sure they're legitimate. A lot of times you may get someone who has a great story, but they just plumb crazy. Or someone who's doing something great for kids, but you got to make sure they're not a pedophile. I mean, you know, all those kinds of things. So we'll vet the person. And what does that mean? One thing for us is, and I'm sorry, my allergies are bothering me, so my nose is itching right now. But one thing that might mean is we may go and look up your name and just do a search to see what comes up. Just like, you know, basic thing. If we're interested in having you, the second thing that they ask, or that I would ask the person who's booking the guest, is, have they done media before? Because what happens, I cannot tell you the amount of people that I've worked with in training. They're fine, and you know, they can present themselves well, but for some reason, whenever a camera comes around, they just freeze up. And it's like the deer in headlights. And that happens for so many people. And people don't realize they even have that. I mean, I've had one woman, she was literally sweating, and I was just like, okay, it's okay. It's okay. But we want to know that you're okay in front of the camera. And that's where any kind of media training would really help, because a person may have the best story in the world, but if they can't speak and can't communicate it, it's not doing us any good. And on television, a typical interview segment is 3 minutes. That's a lot, okay? And that's why both of you were really good and succinct in terms of just saying what it is that you do and why you do it. But we want to make sure that you can have something to say, short, quick, short, fast, and in a hurry, whatever the saying is. But we're vetting you out to see if you've had any experience. And a lot of times they're just not going to bring on a national platform someone on as an expert unless they've already proven themselves in some type of media. It doesn't have to be television. And that's why I said I would really look at if it's an opportunity for radio or for to be quoted, something that's published, that will suffice. Now, of course, if you're a witness to some horrific crime, or you've started a blog, and if you're doing that, that's great too. Then nowadays with social media, people find people all over the internet and they bring them on because of that. And now a lot of people do like we're doing, is have you on electronically on Skype or something. So you don't have to be in studio. But regardless, they just want to make sure that you have a message and you can convey that message very clearly and very well without straying off topic, without looking too nervous. You know, we used to always say a person might have a face for radio, which is really mean, but I don't think that matters as much now. We have all kinds of people on the air. Val can attest to, especially during this election cycle. I'm like, I don't know where this person came from, but they have somebody good working with them. Get them on the air. So, so we vet them. We want to make sure that they're ready for the media, or of course I like to say media ready. that you know certain terminology, and it's some just basic things, because you don't want to have to explain each and every little thing to that person when they come into the studio or when you interview in their home. And that's where, you know, the coaching and those things like with Val comes into play too. We want to make sure that if we say stand by, you don't stand up, you know, to know what that means. We just got to make sure that you understand little things, even just the proper way to have on a microphone, and just know what to you know, go into the stage, just basic things to show that I got this, and I've done this. You know, I can't tell you how many times I remember interviewing, you know, you get all these celebrities, and some are not really good interviews at all. I remember having the opportunity to interview Beyonce on her first tour, women's tour, all female tour, solo female tour in Miami, and she was on with Missy Elliott and Alicia Keys. And we went down to do that media press junket, and Alicia Keys was phenomenal, like mature beyond her years. Missy Elliott was just hilarious, and Beyonce was horrible. Now, this was in the early 2000s, I guess, whenever that was, maybe 2005, whenever, but she was uncomfortable, she was nervous, and I was like, oh my God, if she was not a celebrity, there's no way I would interview her. And then you saw for a while, she wasn't being interviewed as much, and now she's much better, but she's still kind of uncomfortable. So, you know, it only takes one bad incident for word to kind of go around. And when you come in studio, I remember from Alabama, Ruben stuttered after he won the Idol, as they say. Everybody was doing interviews, and he came to CNN, and he had his brother with him and his cousin or someone, and he was in the green room, and he was so nervous. He was sweating profusely. He kept asking for Cokes or 7-Ups or something, and I just kept saying, look, I'm gonna need you to calm down. I just want you to relax. And, you know, and I was like, Lord Jesus, please help this man do okay on camera so he won't make himself look bad. But you don't want it, you know, and thankfully it was me. You know, I cared about him. I'm from Alabama. I wanted him to do well, but it could be someone who doesn't look like me who could care less. How you sound, how you look, you know, all of that. So you want to make sure that you just have yourself prepared. So that's the other thing. And then we want to know how accessible you would be. And that means, so if you're in Houston, a lot of times, well, Houston is a major place, so you can, you know, be interviewed easily. Now with Skype, it doesn't matter. But in the past, we might say, well, where could that person go to do an interview? A lot of times we do phone interviews if you're in a small place. But we could say, oh, well, can you go to the station there in Houston? So well, you know, I don't live far from the NBC affiliate or whatever, or I can do Skype from my home, or, you know, you want to let them know that it's easy to get to me. Because a lot of times we say, oh, she's good, but that's going to cost us too much money to get that person to where I am. So you want to make sure that you're accessible. Okay, any questions so far as I go to the next part? I'm trying to stay on time and on target. Okay.
No questions.
Go ahead.
No questions. This is good.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. Okay, so let me see. What else did I have on here on my notes? So some other industry. Okay, so how to be a good guest. So now you've reached out to, I love saying the Black press because I support and I believe in the Black press. So you've reached out to the Afro, I'm just saying the name of the paper, and you've told them, listen, the New Year's coming, a lot of Black women now are like scratching their heads over what just happened in the election, and I have some great tips for women on how to be a success. And you reach out to the reporter or to the newspaper, and they're like, okay, I'm going to do a story with you. They go out and do a story. Then you write a note to the local TV station and attach a clip to the interview and say, you know, quote what the headline from the interview, the title of the article, and say something, you know, kind of pitch yourself again, this time to the local station. So you send it to the assignment editor or the reporter. If you can find a way, you know, use your contacts, use your resources. You'd be surprised how, you know, there are less than 6 degrees of separation, right? I'm always like, I can get to anybody. Give me about an hour, right? So then look to see how I can get in touch with someone at this local station. Now I'm going to send, you know, my press release. and say, as reported in such and such and such and such, and then you have a nice photo of yourself as a JPEG or embedded into that, and they'll say, oh, you know, maybe she can come on the talk show. If there's a morning community affairs show, a weekend show, something, a community access, something just to get yourself out there. Now you've done that. You did a phenomenal job. They're like, Tasha, you're just a natural. Tiffany, we'll have to get you back for something. Let us know when you're having an event. Then you can send a note to the station and say, hey, or to the paper or to the radio show and say, look, I'm going to be having this seminar for women. I'd love for you to come and cover it. You can send it anyway, but it's like everybody and their mom is doing something. So you got to make, you know, why do I want to cover yours? Why, you know, and I tell my students all the time, the first question we say is, who cares? So you got to be able to answer, who cares? Why should I care? And what makes me different from the 11 other people doing the same thing, right? So now I've, you know, said why someone should care about my story, and I've written it up well, and I sent it to the local station in Montgomery or in Houston, and voila, they're going to send a reporter to come to your event, okay? So now when the camera comes, same thing. You just want to make sure that you can properly articulate your message. So the main thing is you want to be able to articulate it. And some of the things, well, first of all, be yourself. We can see so easily, and the camera can just, you know, shine a light very easily on BS. You know, if you're, you know, well, I do this, you know, be yourself. Don't have a character when you're on business and another character when you're at home. Just be who you are. And that would be the first thing I would say, be yourself. And you're your own best publicist. So as you're doing your interview, I would always tell my clients, you have to self-promote. And as you said, you probably heard me say media ready about 20 times, and I haven't had a client in about 5 years since I've been at Howard. But you have to know how to self-promote yourself, okay? So whether it's, you know, here at, you know, you don't have to overdo it, but just find a way to get it in. Here at Work for Women, we believe that as I think when you mentioned when you gave your introduction, by doing this, by doing that, and by doing that. And today we're having a breakfast for some of the women in our community. And I'd love to introduce you to some of the women who benefited by my program, and just be yourself, and then they'll do the rest. What they want to know is that you have a message that resonates and that it's timely, you know, it's relevant and topical. I can't say that enough, because really that's how we get people. They're just not going to bring someone on there, even if it's a quote unquote slow news day. You want to have a story that ties in with something else. And then I'll give the tips that I always give to my graduating journalists when they're just getting ready to get out there in the market. And it's to be prepared, be polite, you know. Now that goes without saying, but seriously, you know, it makes a difference how you come across on camera. If a person seems too hot-headed, you know, but, you know, then we're a little more gun shy about having them on camera, because you don't know what they're going to do. Of course, be professional, but the most important one of the P's I always say is to be passionate. You want to show that you absolutely love what you do. And when you all were describing it, it was obvious, because you smiled, you sat up, and, you know, when people always say, girl, would you want to go back to news? And I'm like, no, thank you. But when they talk about my students and what we do, you know, then people see my face light up, and then they're like, oh, I need to get out this business. I'm ready to do something different, you know. So you want to make sure that you show that you're passionate and it's genuine. If you're having a bad day, if you have cramps, if your husband, your man, your children got on your nerves, that may not be the best day to try to represent yourself, because we all have off days. But, you know, it's true when they say, you want to make your first impression last. I used to do a presentation on that topic, making your first impression last, because unfortunately it's true, you really don't have a second time to make a good first impression. If you're so nervous and you're not prepared, and they come and you're like, oh, I'm not dressed, hold on just a second, then they're like, okay, that's all right. There are 15 people just like you that's ready to have that same opportunity, so don't blow it. for yourself. And then a lot of times you're representing more than yourself. It's still sad. The statistics are still the same. There are not that many people of color that are on air. You look now, except I will say Don Lemon has done really well on CNN with getting a whole panel of Black folks. But in a lot of just on any topic, there's always a complaint about the lack of diversity in terms of who is speaking on certain topics. And that's why I say make it relevant. So another way to make it relevant is, just stay in tune and informed with what's going on, whether it's something that's coming up in your community. So we know now I mentioned the new year, if there are some things for the holidays. One topic the news always does over the holidays is holiday depression. Or, how to prepare for the holidays on a budget. There are certain cyclical things, like I said early on, that you just always do, but you're always looking for, how am I going to find a new way to tell the same old story? And if you can pitch yourself as, I'm the one, you need to talk to me, you need to talk to me, or come up with some little catchphrase of what women want, I always love using little phrase and terms, but what do women really want? We just want peace. And you can write a little article or an op-ed if you're a good one and write that up for the paper, the local paper, the radio. It can be short, 250 words, and just make it boom, boom, boom. What do women want? I have one of my girlfriends that I met right after college. She's outside of Detroit. Her name is Yvette. And she went back to grad school and got her PhD in pharmacy from Hampton, and went back to Detroit. And while she was kind of waiting to figure out exactly if she wanted to go into the traditional pharmaceutical setting or work somewhere else, she decided to start writing little tips on Twitter, like how to handle depression. She's done that. She's done all this. And she was like, JT, I'm writing now. And I'm like, what? I've never known you to be a writer. Well, guess what? She pitched herself to one of the local websites in Detroit, and now she has her own little column like every week. And because she's a PhD, she can give practical tips on, what natural ways to release stress. And she may say, drink some tea. It's not rocket science what she's telling people to do. And it's not even written like it would be valid, and I would write it as a journalist. But she's providing something useful, and she's using her experience, her background, to give the audience something that's not out there. I mean, I was like, you better go, girl, because I would have never in a million years expected her to start writing anything. And I'm just being serious. And I'm so proud of her. But now she's like, has all these Twitter followers and she writes these columns on topics, and they're just from her own perspective. And they're very short. Like I said, it's not even like the best journalistic stuff, but she has a big following. And I don't know if she's done any television as of yet, but people definitely follow her. So you can do that too, and just come up with your, Tiffany W's, wise words for women or something, just kind of put yourself out there, different ways to market it. So that's another way. But we're always looking for something to tie into what's going on the scene. The other thing that we look for is a person that we like to say the person is great. So you have something to offer that's unique, timely, and relevant. Be able to have a good story around what maybe you do. So if, like I used the example of Albert, whose house fell down and blah, blah, and how he was able to utilize my service. So if you have a person that you've worked with that has benefited from your services and would like to share that, that could be a way you can help promote yourself as well. So you have to have a good story. We want to make sure that we like to say in news, or I always said, can this person speak in sound bites? So I was asked to talk to an hour, so I'm just going on and on, just talking. But if I knew I had 3 minutes, or if you had 30 seconds to ask the question, if I were to ask, well, the holidays can be a really depressing time for women, specifically African-American women who seem to be juggling so much. If I were to have to ask you, what would be some tips that you would give for women to make it through this stressful time? So if that were my question as the interviewer, then think to yourself, how would I answer that in about 30 seconds? And I say 30 seconds because, mind you, the average interview, I don't know how it is for y'all Val now, but like it would be like 3 minutes, literally. Sometimes 3 to 5 if it's a big topic, but you want to make sure that as the interviewer, we can get in at least 3 to 5 questions in that time. As the interviewee, the word, I had a booking producer, I would say, well, they weren't too long-winded, are they? What we say in the news is someone who could speak in sound bites. We love someone who can speak in sound bites. And back in the day, of course, he put rhymes and stuff in sometimes with his, but he would always speak very succinctly. Al Sharpton is good with that now, but you know, he's been on TV for so long. You want to be able to put a part of your message in a little bit of clip so that you could say something, you know. So a lot of times, as one of you said earlier, it could be 1, 2, 3, ABC, or just be able to, you know, make your message really short and sweet. Not too short. You can be short enough. So if I say, well, tell me more, then you can go into it. But the very worst thing that can ever happen, and which happens a lot, is we will ask one question, and that person has talked so much that the person has to interrupt and say, I'm sorry, okay, well, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to leave it there. We're all out of time. And then you're like, well, dog, I didn't even know. She only asked me one question. Well, you know, you have to know how to. And so I would always talk to my guests, even before the camera, you know, when we're in the commercial break, and say, okay, well, we have about 3 to 4 minutes for the segment. So the anchor has several questions. So just keep that in mind. You know, I would always try to give my guests a little bit of a heads up, because that's the worst thing. And you don't, you know, they'll never, at least that person won't ever have you come back again if you can't express yourself in a short amount of time. Now, the opposite is true too. You know, they should ask an open-ended question, but you don't want to just say no. Well, do you feel that this is a good time for women to get themselves back on the job market? No, I do not think this is a good time for women to get myself on the job. And then you sit there and they're like, okay. You know, always have a response, have a little bit more to say. Try to put yourself in there to promote yourself when it's, you know, when it's possible. And then the last tip on that line would be just making sure that you're ready to present yourself for the media. Be media ready. And that means how you look, how you sound. You know, Valerie's going to talk to you if she hasn't already about, you know, just proper ways to put yourself out there. It's unfortunate, and I say it to my students because, you know, I have to keep it real so they know what the reality is. You know, they're always like, well, can I wear my hair natural, or what's acceptable? And I always tell them, and so I tell my clients, just make sure that you're not a distraction. And I know Val has said like the exact same thing to my students when they ask. And that's, to me, and I have, you know, here in college, you know, students, anything goes, half time for them. But I'm like, if I'm too busy figuring out if those girls are going to jump out that blouse, the next time you bend over and you're talking that microphone, and you may not want to have that shirt on, you know. So it's something as simple as what you're wearing, or oh, what is that on her? You know, is that her hair? Why is her hair? You know, you just want to make sure that you're presenting yourself professionally. And I always kind of jokingly said to my class, but it's very true, because they may look at you and be like, that's all right. Okay, okay. So I to go more conservative, at least initially for the first time, just so that you got to get your foot in the door before you start knocking it down. You know, it's harder to knock down a door that's completely closed than one that has a little crack in it, right? So you want to get an opportunity to get on the news first, or in the outlet first, and how you present yourself is going to be a big part of that. And I think that's pretty much really all that I had to say. But, you know, I can't underline enough how just to really find stories that are out there now people want to have someone more. And you hear on the news, they say it all the time. They'll tell the stories. A new study is out that says that such and such and such and such. But how does that affect local women here in the Valley? To bring Tiffany Scott is the owner of Women for Success, and her company is offering unique strategies, and she's going to join us in a few minutes to tell us more about what she does. Tasha, tell us what it is that you do. So that's how you want. So you can find that by staying up with, what's going on in women's magazines. If there's something in O Magazine, Cosmopolitan, just kind of see what's vogue. What are the new fashion trends? They come up with all, and then you can even create the topic that way. There's a new, Vogue magazine says, or Oprah Winfrey Show says such and such and such and such. But how does it really impact women? Does that make sense? So those would be my tips for you with how to get yourself on a national network. And again, as in most cases, just remember that all news is local. So it's going to start on that local level and build yourself up to the next. So I wish you guys the best with everything. I'm so excited. I love to see women being empowered and doing their thing. I've been where you are. I worked for 5 years completely solo after a very nice, cushy job, and I went down to nothing, just doing it for myself. It was scary, but had I not done that, I would not be here, and I absolutely love what I'm doing. So I just wish you guys sincerely continued success, and I look forward to seeing you all on TV and everywhere else.
Jennifer, thank you.
And I thank you, Valerie Lawson, for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you. You provided some great information. In fact, I was telling Tasha and I had our one-on-one session yesterday, and the very thing you talked about, two things that we talked about, and one was making sure that you tie in your business to something that's happening now, and I wanted it to be right around the holidays so that they can get media coverage during the holidays. And the one thing I told them, Tasha, I'm going to mute so you can tell her the one thing I told you. And I know we both looked at each other. Tell her what I said.
Are you serious?
Yes, you talked about depression during the holidays, and that's what Valerie has been telling me, is talk about how women can reconnect during the holidays.
Yes.
And we also talked about when she has an event, the electronic press release, so to speak. Tiffany did a great job with it the other day on Facebook. She had her phone. She was in a room. She said, hey, this is where we're going to meet. And she just kind of walked around with her cell phone. And, we're going to have women here, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And that little bit, Tiffany, is something that you can package, send to the TV station or whoever you want to send it to after you sent your press release. That's a great follow-up to say, okay, it starts at so-and-so, it's this date, and we're expecting 150 people. Hopefully you guys can cover it. It's going to be great. Or, whatever you want to say. But that is a great way to follow up using that electronic press release, so to speak. And the other thing you talked about is when you write your press release is to have a good headline. You got to have something that they're going to open.
You're not going to look at it otherwise.
I encourage them to make an initial phone call. You can't do that in really big cities. You probably won't be able to do it. But if you can contact someone first, then let them know that you're going to be sending them something, then you can send it to that person. And when they open it up and they say, okay, oops, city tears down wrong house, they're going to look for that. They're going to open it. They get so many emails in a day that it's important to have a good headline. You've already contacted them. They know they're expecting something from you. You've already written the first line of their story. Oops, city tears down wrong house. I want to know about that. And that's how you get them interested. It's just playing with words and just being catchy. So all of this.
And I'll say you guys have a good person there in Valerie. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Oh, no, I was just saying that you guys have a great coach in Valerie because she's always known. I always tell her since we've known each other, she's always has me cracking up because she has a line for everything now. I don't know if you all have already experienced that.
They don't know
But
that
she has
side
a
of me.
line for
They
everything.
don't
And
know that
she
side
always
of me.
has the best. They don't know that side what
No,
she
they don't know
does.
that side.
But she always has the best lines when she reports. And I remember within like the first month or two of her being at our TV station, she got a story that ended up being on the feed for, was it for CNN?
CNN, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we were young. I mean, and I was like, okay. And that got her so much attention because she could write well and she could really, get people to feel relaxed and express herself and still be professional. So to the last thing I would say to her point is, and when you're doing these videos, when we're looking, we're like, oh, they look like they'd be great on camera, because the other worst thing is, besides being too verbose or not speaking in sound bites, it's that the person looks so nervous on camera that you just hurry up and get them off the air. And I mean, all these things I'm saying are things that we say and that have happened. So if you have this great personality, but when the camera comes on, you stiffen up, it's good now with Facebook Live and these other things to practice that, because all it is a different type of camera in your face. But still, and that's why I keep saying, be yourself, be yourself, be yourself, because if you always have, fun, outgoing personality, that's what's going to come across. And it's you could end up having someone come do a story on you, not just be live on. I know I was kind of focusing on being live on a newscast, but they may send a reporter out to cover your event. And that's even better, because that's a perpetuity. You can look, if you Stronghouse in the name Al Bird, ALBYRD. That was in 2009. There's still at least a couple things I know online from that story. So you want to be able to have your name, or you can like Google your name and all these things will pop up in the media. So continued success, and I'll look forward to hearing some updates from Mrs. Lawson down the line to see how successful you are. So continued success, y'all. God bless.
Thank
Again,
you so much.
thank you, Jennifer.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
All right. See ya. I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Thank you, Valerie.
Okay, guys. If I don't know, did you all have any more questions? Because she did get off kind of quickly. But,
Thank you so much for that, Valerie.
okay. Was that helpful? Did you
Yes.
get anything out of that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was. I had a couple of questions. She really answered most of my questions as she was talking, so I started scratching my questions off. But I guess I think the main thing for me is I know what my future goals are. So in addition to doing the workshops here in Houston locally, eventually I do want to gain a segment or a spot on television where I am the authority on topics of women's issues. So I guess my question was, what is the best way to set myself up as an authority? I think I know what to do. I just kind of want to be affirmed in my answer, because my thoughts are to move forward with things like my YouTube channel. I have a YouTube channel and I do two minutes with Tiffany, and I talk about things that are specific to women at work. And I wanted to just make sure I was going in the right direction. I just want to spend very strategic time in doing things that are going to matter, and that things that people are going to pick up and say, oh, okay, she is the knowledgeable one on women's issues and women in the workplace.
I think you're doing everything right. You just started. So I think you're doing everything right. I don't want you to burn out.
Okay.
The article was very good. Those were good tips. Continue to do what you're doing. Focus on your conference that you're doing. I think your networking conference that you're doing, that's great. And continue to send out information about it, because what happens is when people read your press release, they'll say, okay, well, we can't have her on, but why don't we quote her here? So you want to be quoted, and I think that's important. When they can quote you and then somebody sees your conference and they look you up and they do a quick Google search if they decide to do that. And they'll say, okay, well, she's been quoted here, she's been quoted here, she's been writing here. And even in your press release, you can mention that. In my last 2 minutes with Tiffany, we discussed blah, 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 blah. I just think being timely and getting as much coverage as possible. You see how she went from talking about This was some may say this was a tough year for women with Hillary Clinton losing the election. That was right on time with what you are doing.
Yeah. I'm
No
definitely.
Yes. But it's there for you to use. That's why it's important that you stay connected to current events.
Mm-hmm.
That was an easy one, an easy thing to pick up about women shattering the glass ceiling.
Right.
You want help shattering the glass ceiling? Use that term as well, because that's something everybody's been talking about. Hillary Clinton, that was her thing. She had a glass ceiling, everybody was saying, for her that night if she had won, so that she could use it to say, we have broken through the glass ceiling. We can break through it in 2017.
Right.
Tiffany can tell you this. I think you are on the right track. It's just going to take being timely with your message, instead of always talking about your conference. Focusing on things like what she said, tough year for women. This is how you bounce back. Black women are voting. We're voting in numbers. This is what Tiffany can tell you about that. Whatever the current event is, whatever everybody's talking about, if you can tie that into a woman's issue somehow, do that. Don't be too forceful.
Right.
Because you don't want to appear like some crazy woman out there. But I think you are doing everything right. You're doing everything right. It's going to start picking up.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Okay. Is there anything else that I can help you with, or go ahead and get on my calendar so we can do our one-on-one, so we can talk about promoting your event into the new year.
Okay. So you left that link inside of the Facebook group, right?
Mm-hmm. It should be bit.ly/newsmaker schedule.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead and get on my calendar so we can have our one-on-one and talk a little bit more about what you're doing and how you can get some media coverage.
Okay. That sounds good. I will definitely do that.
All right, Tiffany, I'm going to get out of here and go to work.
Thank you. I'm going to work too. I'll see you later.
All right. See you later. Bye.